Hey, it's Tiedra of Kingsskid. I have one of my favorite crownpreneurs, mompreneurs with me today, Brieanna Lightfoot Smith. She's everything you want to be, honey. So I'm super excited for the jewels that she's going to drop today. Her bio. Brianna Lightfoot Smith is an author of Black Girl's Guide to Living on Purpose. I read that book and it was actually a very good book. I would highly recommend it. We will provide the information for you to purchase her book. And the founder of Black Girls Purpose Movement. She has encouraged over 1,000 women and teens over the course of her career and used her experience in the New Orleans education system to design workshop-style curriculum that cover topics such as identity, healthy self-esteem, time management, goal setting. In the summer of 2018, Brie partnered with Essence Fest Day of Service to present Boss Up workshop on entrepreneurship. Now, all of us need to know how to boss up. In the fall of 2018, Brie also launched Black Girls with Purpose podcast, which airs weekly and has over 22,000 streams. Her audience spans all across the United States and internationally. After battling against suicidal thoughts as a teenager, she emerged as a 20-something with a story to tell. She now has dedicated her life to helping women connect to Christ, calling, and community. Y'all heard that. Connect to Christ, calling, and community. When she's not writing or listening to music, you can find Brie spending time with her family or working on programming for her nonprofit Unity Queens. Brie, I'm super excited to have you today.
Thank you so much, T.
So I want to start with, I know I read your bio, but I want to start with, how did you get to this journey? Like, what led you to Black Girls with Purpose, the Black Girls Guide to Living on Purpose?
Honestly, working in New Orleans, I was working in the school system there, and between working with teenagers at a high school in New Orleans and then also working with teens through my church, I was going to Franklin Avenue Baptist Church at the time, I could just tell that there was a need for what it is that I was offering. And I was actually in the process of writing an article about self-love. And as I was interviewing one of my teens and asking her questions, my heart was just broken, because I just remember being like, man, God, here I am, 22, 23, this is 8 years after I've had my first thoughts of suicide. And it seems like young girls are still struggling with the same things that I was struggling with when I was a teen. And I said, something needs to be done. And he was like, you're right, you need to do something. And I was like, how did this end up being my assignment? But, whatever God puts a burden on your heart for is usually the thing that he's placed in you to do as well. And so I was like, okay, don't know what I should do. And literally within the same breath, he's like, write a book. I said, okay, I'm gonna write a book. What's it gonna be called? And he said, The Black Girls Guide to Living on Purpose. And I was like, see, that's where you're wrong, because I don't want people like, well, why can't it be the white girl's guide or the Hispanic girl's guide? Why can't it be every girl's guide? But I felt like he put on my heart, he said, Brie, if I've given you this name, it's gonna be successful. And so just go with it. And I mean, literally from writing that book, then I started doing workshops because my aunt said that I should do workshops, and it just kind of was a snowball effect. But it really came from trying to solve an issue that I was seeing in my environment.
So you became the answer that you once needed at some point.
Absolutely, yes.
Wow, I love that, because that was my next question. At what point did it get so specific? Because Black Girls with Purpose or Black Girls Guide, that is extremely specific in regards to your target audience.
Right.
So, and you answered that like God gave it to you, and he said,
this
is what it is. This is the name.
Mm-hmm.
So
I had an organization. He was that specific.
So with that, because by this time you were married too, right?
I wrote my book, published it in of 2016, got married, or January of 2016, got married in April of 2016, and then like later that year got pregnant with our first child. So 2016 had a lot of things happening.
So talk about mommy, entrepreneurship, and marriage. And let me say that marriage, mommy, entrepreneurship, like all of that happened in a span of a year for you. What was that experience like?
It was definitely a balancing. I'll say that the wife part of it, like being married, was never an issue, only because I have a very supportive husband who was my photographer at any events that I would do. You know, he proofread my book and I remember when I first got my physical copy of it, like sitting in the car with him and opening up the box and like, oh my gosh, it's here. You know, the book is really here. And we went and got ice cream. So he was always, and has, and still is all these years later, someone who celebrates my wins. So that part wasn't difficult. I think the balance part came in after I became a mom, because I struggled with a fear that being a mom was going to consume my identity. And so I actually worked harder to be like, okay, yeah, I'm a mom, but I have all these other things going for me. And so I was really, even after I had my child, my oldest child, Jaden, I was working very consistently, like still staying very active in ministry. And people were like, oh my gosh, you know, you're superwoman. Didn't you just have a baby? And I'm like, yeah, but that's just one part of me. And honestly, God had to sit me down and be like, hey, yes, it is one part of you, but you're actually operating out of order at this point, because you are not making your family a priority. You're so focused on not losing yourself in the identity of a mom that you're not even trying to get better as a mom, right? You're not even trying to say, okay, like meal prep or my house being in order, or, you know, making sure that, yes, even if I am going out to do ministry things or a speaking engagement, like my family is set before I leave. And so the following year, he actually called me to be home for 2 full years. And I'm just now about to enter the workforce again, because I feel like he's finally shown me what my priorities need to be.
Okay, so let's talk through that point, because I never saw myself as someone getting married. So therefore I never saw myself having kids. So now, you know, my journey, like now I'm on the path of getting married and all that stuff. But how did you feel when you realized that God had to sit you down in that, and in the fact that the priority wasn't there? What was those emotions like?
It was humbling, and there was definitely some, I guess, some shame in feeling like, dang, you know, I've really focused on all these other areas and I'm not working on this role that God has clearly put in my life and placed in my life. You know, it's not a guarantee that you even get to be a mom. And so for me to just kind of dismiss it, like, okay, yeah, I'm a mom, but I'm all this other stuff. I feel like I had disrespected God. I knew I had disrespected my husband, in that I love him and I'm so grateful that he allowed me to work through what I was working through. But I'm like, I shouldn't just be like, y'all fend for yourselves, I'm going, you know. And I think that, especially in today's society, sometimes the independent woman narrative is preached so much that it's to the detriment of our families, and people don't look at the family unit anymore. Or, you know, if you're the housemaker and the homemaker, you're weak. And I'm like, no, you can be multiple things. Like, I can meal prep for my family, and I can do the things that I need to do for my business, and I can still, you know, it's not a either or thing. Now, you have to be very strategic and you have to manage your time in a different way, absolutely. But when I learned I can do all these things through Christ who strengthens me, like, it really changed my perspective on things. And then I found joy in cleaning and meal prepping, which I never thought I would find joy in. I mean, I remember one day my house was just so clean, and I had grocery shopped and meal prepped, and, you know, cut to the point where I cut up the fruit for everybody to have snacks. And I was just like, who am I? Am I okay? So it's really,
that's a good point, Brie, because culture does focus a lot on being the independent woman. And for me, that's what I wanted. Like, I just wanted the career and to be quote unquote independent, never wanted the other stuff. So now that you feel that God is calling you back into the workforce, what does your priorities look like now? Like, do you think that your mentality is more healthier, not just for yourself, but for your family?
Absolutely. I think that I've learned that I'm multifaceted, and in the same way he's God the Father, he's God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. Like, God's like, okay, you're Brie the wife, Brie the mom, Brie the entrepreneur, Brie the workforce, employee. Like, and understanding that I'm not just one thing has really helped me. And I've learned, for me, like, balance is a myth because it's giving equal weight to things at the exact same time. And I feel like when you are an entrepreneur or a wife or a mom, you understand it's not about balance. It's about what you said at the beginning. It's about priorities. So, okay, right now in this moment, I'm giving my children a bath. So I'm gonna make sure they're super clean. I'm gonna make sure they have pajamas ready and waiting when they get out of the bath. And then when I put them down, now I'm putting on my business owner hat and I'm checking in with my online community and I'm making sure that they have the things that they need. And okay, they're good. Now I'm taking that off that hat, and now I'm in the wife mode, and I'm checking on my husband and I'm like, hey, how was work today? Like, what are what things are you working on this week? And so being fully present in whatever role I'm playing in that moment has helped me tremendously, because I also realized that being mediocre in any of those areas is not representing Christ in the way that I'm supposed to be. Because if I'm supposed to be letting his light shine through me and I'm just average, then it's like, okay, well, is there supposed to be something special about the Christian people? Because she just seemed okay to me.
And I like that. Being mediocre in any one of those areas is not really giving God his full glory. So in that, because you mentioned Brie the mom, Brie the wife, Brie the entrepreneur, what does rest look like for you?
Rest looks like delegation. It looks like asking people like you, hey, can you monitor our Facebook group? It looks like asking my husband, can you give the boys a bath tonight? It looks like shopping on Walmart's app for groceries instead of going into the grocery store and just picking them up and being like, hey, that's a 30 minutes to an hour that I just gained back so that I can focus on other things. And so it really does look like delegation for me. I think when I was younger, and especially like I was saying before, fresh, like wife, fresh mom, I didn't really know what delegation looked like. I think there is still that pressure. Unfortunately, I think it is a pressure specifically amongst Black women. I feel like every woman has that inner pressure, but I think there's even more of a pressure with Black women to be everything. We may not have seen our moms ask for help a lot, may not have seen our grandmothers ask for help, our meemaws, our nanas, whoever we call, whatever we call them. And so there's that mentality of, okay, if I haven't seen this, then that's not normal. Maybe I'm not supposed to be asking for help. But honestly, I had to learn to ask for help when I had just had our son, and I broke my toe and I couldn't drive for 6 weeks, and it was my right foot. So I couldn't drive. I literally had to sit down most days. And then I had also had a C-section. So your recovery is a little bit slower with a C-section. And so I really felt in that moment, God was like, I need you to know that the world doesn't stop running just because you're out of commission. And again, that was humbling. Not that I felt that to that extent, but I had to ask people for help in that season. And so I remember telling God, hey, you don't have to break my toe again. I'm just gonna ask for help. And I remember when my second son was born, I thought I broke my toe, and I was like, God, I thought we went through this already. Like, what are you doing? But he was like, no, you didn't break it, but I just wanted to show you that you still need to be asking for help.
So, and I'm glad you dove into the way that you did, because sometimes we feel like if we can't do it, can't nobody else do it, or it won't get done. So how did you get comfortable with delegating? Because that's precious too. The things that people delegate to you, it's precious. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a part of your baby. You want it done right. You want it done in excellence, and you don't want nobody to be out here misrepresenting the gift or the brand that God has given you. So what, in regards to delegation, how do you determine what gets delegated to who, or who to even ask, or where to even find that type of community? I know you're really big on community. So let's talk through that, because people may not have those resources or may not know who to ask or how to ask.
I would say it starts with building relationships, because everything that I've delegated, when I delegated it, I had already had an existing relationship. I mean, there was a whole month where I gave my podcast over to another sister in Christ, and I was like, hey, you host it for this month. I know you got this, you know. But at that point, we had done Instagram lives together. She had helped with our social media. So I knew her. That was the most important part. But then two, I knew she knew my heart for my work and the stuff that I was doing. And I knew she shared my heart and my passion for it. And so it was a very easy transition. And I knew that God was also putting her in a space to start a podcast herself. So it was just a very natural fit. And I felt like, hey, this is a kind of a practice run for whenever you get started. And same thing with you, like I got to know you as a person first. And then it was like, hey, can you help us with our online community? I feel like you are great with engagement. I know you share my heart for women. I know you want to see people moving forward. And so it really comes with studying a person. Courtney Sanders, who's the former Think and Grow chick, and now her business is just Courtney L. Sanders Company. She talks often about hiring for character and not for skill, because she said you can teach the skill, but you can't teach character. And I have seen that to be true. You know, one of the women who was taking over our newsletter, who was emailing it every week, she would be so hard on herself. And she's like, oh, Brie, I keep messing. I said, listen, the content of this is great. We have to make a few tweaks with, okay, this is how you add product tags, or this is how you do this. But at the end of the day, I know your heart. I know you're a woman of integrity. I know I can trust you with this. And I know you're not going to say anything crazy that doesn't sound like me. Right. And so it really comes with building those relationships. And I think you have to be vulnerable and willing to build those relationships, because I think especially now with COVID, people are starting to come out of that, hey, I'm an army of one, because it's like, no, army of ones don't get things done. But I think that when we are open to creating community, and when we really see people's heart for us first and foremost, and then their heart for what it is that we're doing, it's easy to delegate, because you say, I know this person, I know how they've been just with me, and I know they share my passion for the work that I'm doing. And so I trust that even if they mess up, you know, that they're going to be, that we can talk through it, that it's not going to be, well, if you was going to come back and ask me about this, then why did you even, no, it's not going to be that kind of situation, right? And so it really does come from cultivating relationships. And then for me, you know, I bring everything to prayer too. Like, okay, God, I have all these amazing people. Who do you feel like is the right fit for each specific position? Because even if you have the right people, but in the wrong position, if I had the person doing the podcast, doing the emails, and the person with the emails and the email, you know, the accountability group, it's like, okay, well, no, you have the right components, but the recipe is like messed up. So it really does come with discernment as well, and kind of seeing how people are showing up in their own spaces and saying, okay, how can I create a bridge from what they're already doing to what I need help with?
That just sounds like identifying the skills,
Mm-hmm.
identifying their skills, which goes back to what you stated earlier, hire for character, and we could teach the skills, which I really think you could do like a whole consult on that,
Mm-hmm.
considering what's going on in our world, but we'll leave that one there. So you seem like one person that, well, you don't seem like you are, like you're transparent in your journey, you're transparent in your struggles. And even in our recent group, you was just like, hey y'all, I can't do it, I need y'all to take over. And what I noticed in our group was like everybody stood up. Everybody stood up and was just like, I got you, I could do this, I could do this. And before you know it, everything for the whole month is done, and you didn't have to worry about that. How did that make you feel when you noticed that you literally had a tribe of women that stood up so you could literally rest? Because somebody, one, don't know how to cultivate that community, but they also don't know what it feels like to have women speaking up on their behalf to say, I got you, you rest. So how did that feel for you?
It was amazing. I mean, even now thinking back on it, like I'm tearing up a little bit, because I think it's important for ourselves I think it's important that we give ourselves permission to rest. And I had wrestled so much with oh, and it wasn't even so much of what are people going to think, because again, that goes back to cultivating those relationships. I knew I put the time in within our group where people know my character, they know my heart. A lot of people in the group have known me even before we launched Activate. So it wasn't so much a, they gonna think I'm trifling or whatever, but it's also like, well, will people show up, right? Because they can say, hey, I love you, girl, I'm here for you, but or people say, girl, that's not my gift, I don't know how to, that's what you do. And so it was also inspiring for me to see women see themselves as the owners of their destiny, for lack of a better term, right? So they're saying, okay, yes, this is a community that I come in and I receive, but I can also give. And that inspired me, because I really want Activate to be a ground where people, like, this is your practice ground, right? You're able to come in here and try new skills and try new things and beta launch things. And okay, that was great, this was a failure, these kinds of things. Like, I wanted that. And so seeing women step up, I felt like I was getting a glimpse into that and seeing, okay, they're okay, right? Like, in the same way you said, like, this is, our business and our baby. I also felt there was so much peace knowing that I was in good hands. Like, I was leaving my business in good hands. I wasn't going to have to come back and be like, okay, we're going to have to restructure everything. And I don't know what this is. And why did y'all start posting these kind of things? You know what I mean? Like, some ownership. And I think that's really important for anybody who's trying to build an online community. Like, you need to cultivate ownership. You need to be consistent. Even if it feels like people aren't engaging, continue to talk. Never know who's going to show up. Because I'll even say, people who volunteer for specific things, I was like, oh, okay. Like, when Aaron said, I'm going to do the Bible study, I was like, well, come on and preach to us then, sister,
And they said it was good. I hate that I missed it, because I was like, because I literally said to myself, I said, maybe I could switch it to where I do the Facebook room and then she do, because I wanted it to be recorded.
Yeah.
So, but they gave good feedback even leading up to it for her, because she was like, I never done this before. And even afterwards, they talked about how timely the word is. Mm-hmm. So I do think it's important that we create those safe spaces for each other. I don't think there's a lot of safe spaces, and that's the importance of what you created in our community. It was not just ownership, but it was a safe space for us to cultivate and help one another out in every area of life. But I really wanted you to touch on that, because that could be hard a lot for you to just say, number one, hey y'all, I need help, but two, trusting people to do it and do it in the spirit of excellence, the way that you have.
And then not to micromanage people after you say, hey, can you do this for me? To be like, no. And they're like, okay, well, aren't you supposed to be taking a nap? Like, why are you in here right now?
And that's important too, because you don't want people to be micromanaged. I forgot about that part. Mm-hmm. So what are the consequences of people not resting or not delegating in their life or even in their business?
Burnout is obviously a big thing. Burnout in that you may continue to produce work, but it's not going to be the same quality. And people can tell. I've had seasons where I produce things out of grind and not out of grace. And even if it's an email, the open rate is like half, because God's like, you didn't even try. He's like, I'm not having them read this. This is not even from me, So that I've seen, you definitely have burnout. I think it kind of depletes you of your creativity, because if you're in a moment, if you're always producing, you never have a moment to step back and reflect and say, okay, what have I done that's been really good? What's not been so great? What are people even responding to more? I think it's really important to have those moments away. And I know one of my old pastors, he was talking about, I don't remember if it was Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, but one of them would take like at least 3 weeks in the summer, and they called them think weeks. And they just thought about new strategies for their business. They didn't come into the office. They weren't reachable by phone or email. They would just go off somewhere and think about their business and their strategy and how they could be better. And so I know even in this time that I've taken away from the group and away from everything with Black Girls with Purpose, scheduling my podcast episodes to go out weeks in advance, I've gotten some fresh perspective. I feel like I have some, okay, this is something I actually want to do away with. I think that was for a season, and now we're moving on, and some things that I want to add. And I'm grateful to have that kind of clarity, because I'm someone who loves the work that I do. And that's why I knew it was time to take a step back, because it just felt like a chore to me. And I'm like, if I am talking to women and that feels like a chore, something is wrong, because I love talking to women. I love connecting with women. I love doing Bible studies. I love thinking through ideas. And if I'm, people are coming on and I'm just like, hey, y'all, like, that's not, no, it's not good. It's not, and it's not good for people who are watching, because they like, I came here to be refreshed, but you seem a little dry yourself. So I'm not sure if this is the right place for me.
I'll click later. I'll click back later to see if anything changed.
Right.
And I think that's important to stay in tune with that, because the same thing that you were feeling, I felt that way when I was working. And literally, you had this conversation, when you're a recruiter, you're happy when someone comes to you. But me, I wasn't trying to recruit nobody. I was just over it. But I realized that I was in the right industry, but the wrong function. But I had to take that break, like you said. So I think not being afraid to take those breaks and get refreshed. And I noticed my pastor does it too. I think in August is his full month off. He's off the grid in August, and then he comes back in September. I know with Kingsskid, December I take off. December I don't do anything, because I'm planning for Christmas and all of that stuff. So I think it's good to do that, to really just have that fresh wind and that fresh fire. So how has marriage, motherhood, and entrepreneurship improved because you took the time to rest?
I'm starting to find the joy again. That's what I was talking with another woman in our community, Bianca, and I don't remember what the question was, but I was just like, I don't have joy anymore. I'm just going through the motions, and I'm really big on telling God what his word says. And I'm like, you said you came that we could have life and that we could have it more abundantly, and this doesn't feel like abundant living. And so because it was literally getting to the point where I couldn't even enjoy my children. Like, it was just, like, oh, here y'all are again. I know you live with me, but like, y'all don't have nowhere else to go. That was a part of it. I was very irritable with my husband and very sensitive. Everything he said could send me to just a sunken place. And I was just like, I'll just be here with these children and you, all this extra stuff. And so I'm finding joy again. I feel like I'm finding my voice again. I feel like I'm getting grounded in God's promises again, because literally it got to a place where I couldn't even listen to a sermon all the way through. I was just like, okay, you know what I mean? I was like, I already know where y'all going with this. So I would just cut it off. Or things would come up to be and they would be distractions, but I would just be like, it's fine. I was only kind of barely watching this anyway. So I feel like my joy is coming back. I feel like I'm refreshed. I'm hopeful. Because that was another thing. Every opportunity that would come up, I'm like, it's probably not going to turn into nothing, because nothing turns into nothing. That's just how it started to feel. And so definitely feeling refreshed, definitely feeling hopeful again, new ideas, getting to a place where, because there was a time where every morning in my prayer closet, I would pray, and then God would just drop little jewels, as you would say, into my spirit. And I'm like, ooh, let me just write stuff down on note cards. And I had a part of my wall that said divine insight. And so I would just stick my little note cards next to the divine insight stuff. And girl, that section of my wall was dry for a while and very empty. I had taken down all the things that I had acted upon, because it was usually an idea to look into, or even a product to launch or something like that. And so a lot of them I had done, but I wasn't getting anything new. And so I'm just like, well, and just recently, maybe a couple weeks ago, God put something on my heart and I wrote it down. And then I saw something that may look like it's being manifested, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, just still kind of keeping it mild, because I don't want to send myself back into the sunken place of like, see, I just let myself get excited and it's already going the way I didn't want it to go. But just seeing something that he had told me in my prayer time and seeing it again somewhere else, I was like, okay, God, I feel like I'm starting to hear you clearly, because that was another thing I was telling the sister in Christ. And I'm someone who very clearly hears from the Lord, and I'll be like, the Lord told me this, the Lord told me. But she was starting to, she would say that too. Oh, God was telling me this. And it started to sound like a foreign concept. I was like, so God talked to you? Like, what did he say? And I'm just like, that's weird. You have a relationship with him as well, and you're acting like, so you hear from God? Like, that's when I knew stuff was off. And so, yeah, I'm definitely finding that joy again. I have new peace. I feel like I'm getting fresh revelation, and which is such a blessing, because I had done a fast and I put on my wall new wine. Like, that was one of the things that I wanted. I was like, okay, restored hope, new wine, like confidence in God's plans for me. And so even as he's been giving me these new ideas, I'm like, this is that new wine that we were talking about. Okay, God, I see you're listening to me.
Okay, so what about the motherhood and the marriage part? How did that part improve?
It's been just the same thing. It's just joy.
Okay.
Like, me and my husband are, laugh. Like, the other day, I mean, we were laying down before going to bed. I'm just like cracking up laughing with this dude. And I'm just like, you my dude, you've always
This
been.
is the new wine.
Yeah. But I'm just like, oh yeah, because and that's just a fact too. When you have children and when you have young children, sometimes you get so caught up in the co-parenting that you forget, like, wait, this person was here before the children were. And so finding joy with him, with my children, finding joy with them again, which I will say, I tried to shield them as much from how I was feeling. Like, I tried not to let my attitude affect my behavior towards them. But I did have moments where I would just share, like, mommy's sad today. Mommy's your mom, but she's also like, I'm like, in the same way, Jaden, that you get sad, the same way, John, you get upset, like, mommy can get upset too sometimes, where I'm frustrated or I'm disappointed. And so really trying to talk them through those things, because they're so young. But my parents will tell you, my family will tell you, I talk to them like they're young adults, because I'm like, listen, one day you're going to fully understand. And I also tell people too, especially having been a stay-at-home mom for 2 years, I'm like, listen, if I'm not having any adult conversation with adults, I'm going to have some adult conversation with children, because I can't just be around here like, oh, my little pumpkin. No. I'm going to talk to you regular, and you get what you can get. And if you don't understand more, then we'll just talk about it later.
But I think that's important, because sometimes we try to shield things away from our kids, not realizing that no matter what age they are, if there's a level of maturity there, they can understand that, and that could plant certain seeds that show up later on in life, and they can't put the connection there. So I'm glad that that's something that you're doing and you're sharing, because it's important to have those conversations. Now, of course, if they're younger, you might have to manage that, but it's still important, because you don't want your child to grow up and they don't know, they can't put the connection in certain things.
Right.
So I think that's really important insight, where you have that real conversation with them and that real vulnerability with them. And I feel like even now with me and my mom, I think it's a different level of vulnerability there, as opposed to when I was younger. But I think that just takes time for me to mature, and then for her to get to a certain stage. But I do notice in our conversations,
Mm-hmm.
by her tone, it's like, okay, this needs to stay between me and her, so creating that safe space even for your parents, and vice versa. So I appreciate that. So my last question for you: what does living a crown life mean to you?
Living a crown life means living a purposeful life. Like, you don't just wake up and kind of float through the day. You live your life with intention. And I think sometimes people hear purposeful and they feel pressure. Like, oh my gosh, okay, I got to be purposeful with this day. But it's not so much laying out every step, because scripture says a man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. But it is waking up and saying, hey, God, this is another day that you've given me. And so I want to be a good steward over this day, and being flexible with what that looks like. Because sometimes that looks like, I'm going to spend this time with my family. I'm going to be completely unplugged and just play with my children on the floor with their trucks, or I'm going to make this really awesome meal for my spouse, or I'm going to create this awesome product for my business, whatever it is, or I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to take a nap. I'm going to play my guitar. It's not a specific checklist. It's just saying, okay, God, this is the day that you have made. I'm going to rejoice and be glad in it. And I think when we are purposeful with how we treat each day, not that God is like, okay, you do this, I'll do that, but I feel like he's happy to give us more days if we're treating the days we have well. And I often talk to my oldest son, Jaden, about stewardship. Even when it comes to his toys, he throws it, and I'll tell him, I say, you know what, baby, if I don't feel like you can properly manage the toys you have, it doesn't incentivize me to get you more toys. Like, if anything, I want to take the ones you have away, because you're showing me that you can't be a good steward over those toys. And so for us, I think sometimes we get so frustrated with God, and we feel like, well, you're not doing this, or you're not answering this prayer. I've been asking for this. And he's like, I gave you this thing 2 years ago and you haven't even developed that. So why would I give you more? Or I did give you this business, but you always complain about it. So why would I increase your clientele? Or why would I give you, more listens on your podcast, when it seems like the listeners that you have, you're not even good stewards with that. You don't post consistently, or, if it's a blog, it's like, okay, so I gave you this thing, but you just kind of treat it flippantly. So why would I give you more? And so I feel like being a good steward and living purposefully really does embody what it means to live a crown life. Because when you're operating in excellence like that, and you're showing up and you're giving your all to every occasion and every place, like it's like walking into the room with a crown on. People are like, oh snap, who is that? Is that a queen? Do you know her? I haven't seen
That's
her.
how we was looking at each other when we met each other.
Absolutely. I was like, girl, this shirt. Yeah. Tell me more about what's happening.
Then we find out we both in the same city. Like, we live in the same city.
That was the Lord, for real.
That was all him. So how can people connect with you? And I'm gonna also put your information at the bottom of the video, but I want you to share, how can people connect with you?
Yes, so definitely check out our website, blackgirlsofpurpose.org/join. There's a section on there where you can download a guide on how to build and cultivate community. And so if you just give us your email, then we'll send that guide over to you. Also, for the time being, you can subscribe to the Black Girls of Purpose podcast or the Pain and Purpose podcast. And both of those are by Brieanna Lightfoot Smith. Would love for you to follow my personal page on Instagram, which is at the Black Girl with Purpose. And then if you're interested in this group that Tiedra and I are talking about, Activate, you can go to blackgirlsofpurpose.org/activate, and it's an online learning community for women of faith in business.
There you go. Our mompreneur, our crownpreneur, Brie Lightfoot Smith. Thank you so much for having me. Well, thank you so much for being with me. Yes. Look at me, like you interviewing me.
No, but I appreciate it. It's such an honor. And I love everything you're doing with Kingsskid. So I'm glad that I can be a part of it.